There are people who lived, and there are people who understood what it means to be human. Today, we open the book of one of the latter. Welcome to the world of Sophocles. Before philosophy had a name, before democracy became an idea, before the word tragedy meant anything to anyone, there was a man who forced humanity to look inward, not at the gods, not at fate, but at itself. His name was Sophocles, a poet who did not simply write plays. He wrote psychology. He wrote guilt. He wrote conscience. He wrote the first true inner conflict in human history. Born around 497 BC in Colonus near Athens, Sophocles grew up in a city that believed the gods were protecting it. Athens had survived the Persian Wars. It felt chosen, blessed, untouchable. And in the middle of this confidence, Sophocles wrote something dangerous. Maybe the gods are not to blame. Maybe humans are. Maybe humans destroy themselves. This was not normal storytelling. This was revolutionary thinking. He did not write about heroes. He wrote about people who believe they are heroes. He did not write about villains. He wrote about people who try to do the right thing and still end up destroyed. The audience in Athens was not watching theater. They were watching themselves exposed on stage. For the first time, people did not fear the story. They feared how much they related to it. Sophocles did not write tragedies. He wrote mirrors. And the most terrifying mirror of all was a king searching for the truth without knowing that the truth was himself. But to understand how Sophocles reached this idea, we have to understand the world he lived in. A world where gods decided everything. A world where fate was unquestionable. A world where humans were not supposed to question destiny. And yet, Sophocles built entire stories around one forbidden thought. What if destiny is not the enemy? What if ignorance is? What if the real tragedy is not what happens to us, but what we discover about ourselves? This is why his work still feels modern today. Because Sophocles did not write for his time. He wrote for the human mind, in any time. And in one play, he would create a character so powerful, so psychologically precise, that people, thousands of years later, would still study him, not as fiction, but as a reflection of themselves. That character was Oedipus. Subscribe now, because the next legend is not a thinker, he is a warrior. The king who searched for the truth. Oedipus was not written to be a myth. He was written to be a question so uncomfortable that audiences in Athens sat in silence long after the play had ended. Because Oedipus was not a hero. He was not a villain. He was something far more terrifying. He was a man trying to do the right thing and destroying everything because of it. The story begins long before Oedipus is born. A prophecy, a warning given to a king and a queen of Thebes. You will have a son, and he will kill his father and marry his mother. This was not unusual in Greek mythology. Prophecies were common. What was unusual was what happened next. The king did not ignore the prophecy. He did not challenge it. He tried to prevent it. He ordered the baby to be taken away, to be left on a mountain to die. Because in that world, fate was something you obeyed. But fear makes humans act. And when humans act out of fear, they create the very future they are trying to escape. The baby did not die. He was found, raised in another kingdom, grew up never knowing who he really was. And one day, he heard the same prophecy. You will kill your father and marry your mother. Terrified, Oedipus did the only thing he believed was right. He ran away from the people he thought were his parents. He ran away to protect them. And in doing so, he walked directly into destiny. On the road, he meets a man, an argument, anger, pride. Oedipus kills him. He does not know that this man was his real father. He arrives in Thebes. The city is dying. A monster called the Sphinx is killing anyone who cannot solve her riddle. Oedipus solves it. He saves the city. He becomes a hero. The people celebrate him. They make him king. And as a reward, he is given the widowed queen as his wife, his mother. But Sophocles does not focus on these events. He does not show them. He begins the play years later. Why? Because the tragedy is not what Oedipus did. The tragedy is what Oedipus will discover. The city is sick again. A plague. People are dying in the streets. And Oedipus, now king, says something that defines his entire character. I will find the cause. I will find the truth, no matter the cost. This is where Sophocles becomes dangerous, because Oedipus is not punished for evil. He is punished for wanting the truth. He sends for prophets, witnesses, messengers. Every clue points closer to something terrible, and every time someone tries to stop him, he refuses. Tell me the truth. Even when others beg him to stop, even when his wife pleads with him, even when the prophet says, "You do not want to know," Oedipus insists. He believes knowledge will save him. He believes truth is always good. He believes reason can solve everything. This is not ancient thinking. This is modern thinking. This is us. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth begins to assemble itself. Like a puzzle, no one wants to complete. He remembers the man on the road. He remembers the prophecy. He remembers being adopted. He remembers everything. And then, he understands. He did not escape fate. He fulfilled it. Not because he was evil, but because he tried to be good. Not because he was ignorant, but because he searched for knowledge. This is the moment the audience in Athens stopped breathing, because they realized something terrifying. Oedipus is not suffering because of the gods. Oedipus is suffering because of himself, because of his choices, because of his need to know, because of his pride in believing he could outthink destiny. And when the truth finally becomes undeniable, Sophocles does not give us a dramatic speech. He gives us silence. Oedipus goes inside the palace, and moments later, a scream is heard. The queen has taken her own life, and Oedipus has blinded himself, not out of punishment, not out of guilt, but because he says, "I cannot bear to see the world, now that I know who I am." This is not mythology. This is psychology. This is the first time in human storytelling that the real tragedy is self-awareness. And the audience understood. Sometimes, ignorance is safer than truth. But Oedipus chose truth and paid for it with everything. And this is why Sophocles is still studied today, because Oedipus is not a king from ancient Greece. He is every human being who believes that knowing more will fix everything. And sometimes, it breaks us instead. But there is one more layer, one that most people miss. Oedipus is not weak. He does not beg the gods. He does not deny what he has done. He accepts it. He takes responsibility. He blinds himself. He asks to be exiled. He chooses punishment. And in that moment, he becomes greater than any hero in mythology. Because for the first time, a character does not blame fate. He blames himself and accepts it. This was unheard of in ancient Greece. And this is why the play shook the city. Because Sophocles was no longer talking about gods. He was talking about accountability, about the terrifying power of self-knowledge, about the cost of truth, and about a man who searched for the truth and found himself. Oedipus / the psychological revolution. Oedipus Rex. A king tries to find who brought a curse upon his city. He searches for the guilty one. He swears he will punish them. He promises justice. And the closer he gets to the truth, the closer he gets to himself. Sophocles does something unthinkable for his time. The tragedy is not the event. The audience already knows Oedipus's story. The tragedy is the moment of realization, the moment a human being understands who he truly is and cannot bear it. Oedipus is not evil, not foolish. He is intelligent, moral, determined. And that is exactly why he is destroyed, because he believes the truth will save him, but the truth destroys him. For the first time in artistic history, the climax is not a battle. It is a realization, a man facing himself. And when he blinds himself, it is not punishment. It is because he cannot stand to see. But Sophocles was not the poet of one king, nor of one single tragedy. His world was larger. From Ajax, the warrior shattered by wounded honor, to Philoctetes, the abandoned hero, rotting in isolation. From the relentless grief of Electra, to the silent suffering of the women of Trachis. And then, Antigone, a young woman standing against a kingdom, and Oedipus, the man who searched for truth until the truth destroyed him. Sophocles did not simply retell myths, he exposed human breaking points. And to reveal them, he reshaped tragedy itself. He added a third voice to the stage, not just another body, but another perspective. Conflict was no longer simple. Not hero versus fate, not man versus God, but mind against mind, law against conscience, truth against the one who dares to seek it. He reduced the chorus. He sharpened the dialogue. He turned myth into psychology. And in his hands, the stage became a place where human certainty was more dangerous than destiny. Sophocles did not make tragedy louder. He made it deeper. And once he did, there was no going back. Myth and legacy. There is a story told about Sophocles in his old age. His sons tried to declare him mentally unfit to control his own property. They dragged him into court. Sophocles did not defend himself. He simply read passages from Oedipus at Colonus. The judges asked nothing more. They released him. If this story is true, then Sophocles was saved by his own work, by the power of his words. He died in 406 BC. The same year, Athens began to collapse, as if he left with it. And perhaps the most terrifying thing is not what he wrote, but what he left behind. The idea that humans do not fear fate. They fear discovering who they truly are. And this was only the beginning. Because Sophocles did not simply write tragedies, he revealed what happens when a man stands against fate. But outside the theater of Athens, far from the stage, the masks, and the chorus, another kind of tragedy was unfolding, not written with ink, but with blood, not performed by actors, but by warriors. One man would stand against an empire, not with words, not with questions, but with 300 men, and a decision that would echo louder than any play ever written. His name was Leonidas. Stay with us, because every story in the Story Archive is just the beginning. If this journey moved you, subscribe, because the next tale might change how you see the world.